In this video, we're going to take you through the entire process of restoring this truck, from pulling it out of the woods where it sat for decades, to doing the teardown, to doing all of the individual components, the drivetrain, and finally assembling the vehicle into the vehicle you see today. So we'll take you through this process so you can see all of the effort that goes into our NAO restorations. So Ruth, you're the original owner of the Land Rover?
My husband is the original owner of Land Rover.
So he bought it
New in 1966.
Wow. What dealership did he buy it at?
Stevenson's Foreign Car in Bethel, which is no longer a business there.
Wow.
For a long time. We used to take it in the woods to get firewood and things like that. Drive around town occasionally.
What was your happiest memory in the Land Rover?
Probably getting home when it had broken down.
What happens is... So what we're doing right now is we're taking apart the steering box so we can replace an old O-ring and check on all the bearings. But so now the fun part is we're gonna take this shaft out, and there's gonna be bearings everywhere.
That's good. You got it? Yeah. What are you doing? Okay. There we go. Cool. This is a strictly engine rebuilding machine shop only. Right. That's all we do. That is probably really interesting to the customers, that knowing where their stuff goes. It's not just some backyard guy, Yeah, the older stuff requires a lot more labor-intensive work. I mean, that stuff's usually beat when it gets here, worse than beat. Blocks are cracked, heads are cracked all the time. Everything's just bad with those. Typically has to replace every part. Every moving part inside the engine, on top of cylinder heads, half of them come in here and they're no good. They're not even usable. So you gotta keep finding cores. But a lot of times the whole engine's bad and you gotta start with something else. Yeah, and he uses all OEM stuff. You end up learning all the aftermarket stuff is definitely no good. 'Cause it's not something you can just go to the Land Rover dealership and buy. You can't just go buy a brand new one. They only made so many of them, and there's only so many people rebuilding them and making the old ones new again. So it's more of a status symbol now. You can't just go buy a new one.
Okay, so we just got our engine back from machine shop. They really start by checking the block and making sure it's not cracked. That's obviously the most important thing with any engine. And from there, they boil it out, get out any old crud in the cooling jacket, just get the block completely spotless. And they'll measure how much they need to bore it over. And in this case, this engine is 30 over. So it needed a little bit of extra oversized pistons just so that they could bore the cylinders out, remove any rust or scoring. They also check the crank and make sure that does not need to be cut oversized. The crank was standard bearings on this one, so that's nice and original. We also put in all new rollers, genuine Land Rover rollers. So we have a later 2.5 liter cam in here, and when we put that in, we always use new rollers because the old ones are always scored. So once we get it back, we give it a quick coat of green paint, and now we're getting ready to assemble it. So we're prepping the deck here, making sure everything is clean, and we're gonna drop the head gasket on it and then the head. So this is the last time we'll see this beautiful sight of new pistons.
Alright, so we're gonna put the new head gasket on. It says top right there. Lay that on.
So the heads have had hardened valve seats in them here, because when these engines were built, they were designed to run on leaded gas. And this right here, this little ring, is a hardened valve seat so you could run regular unleaded gas in these. And the whole head has been rebuilt, so you can see it has new valves. And then if you guys flip it over, it has, we put in new valve guides, new valve seals, new valve springs, pretty much everything. And these are all hardened valves, so this is the later type, so we need new cups and retainers. So really everything in the valve train is new. And the heads are all pressure checked to make sure there's no cracks as well. Make sure they're centered in the brass followers. Yeah. Since another thing with these, we shave the heads down. We have a machine so that they're 8-to-1 compression instead of 7-to-1 compression. And when we do that, we have to use slightly shorter push rods from a later Series 3. So all these push rods are new, and they're the shorter ones for the machined head. Not something you want to mix up, that's for sure. But yeah, just grab So Billy's putting on the new rocker assembly. This has a new rocker shaft in here, and all of these rocker arms have been disassembled and cleaned thoroughly and checked for wear. There's brass bushings in there, and we want to make sure that there's no scoring on those. So this rocker shaft assembly has been rebuilt, so you can see the shaft inside is new, and all of these rocker arms were taken apart, and they have brass bearings in there. All those were cleaned so that they're spotless, because you can see all the little oil passageway holes. All of that needs to be just surgically cleaned before it goes back together. So this was nice and rebuilt, attached to the head, and now we're getting ready to torque the head bolt so that the head will be torqued down to the block. Okay, so what we're doing is we just got the parts for 5 of our current projects galvanized, and now we need to sort everything so that the holes can be drilled out to the proper size, because you can see the galvanizing is actually causing the holes to close up. So I'm simply sorting things into different drill bit sizes, so 1/4 inch here, 3/16 for these pieces, and then Nick over here is drilling out the holes. This is all 3/16 stuff that's going to be riveted back onto the project. He's just drilling everything out, getting it ready so that when it comes time to rivet it onto the truck, it's ready to go. and then it'll go right up into our inventory, waiting for the parts to come back for paint. And then we have parts in here, like these seatbelt mounts that need to be tapped out to 7/16. So it's just, we're just gonna do an assembly line style prepping of all the galvanized parts. And everything's wiped down with WD-40 to keep it from corroding, because it'll get a white kind of oxidation just from sitting for the amount of time that it takes for the body panels to be painted for all of our projects. So we're just wiping everything down, getting it so it'll stay fresh and new. All the sub-assemblies have been fully assembled before we actually start building out the frame, because we don't want to have a bare frame sitting there taking up a bay while we're assembling the engine. All that can be done at an earlier time. Not just the engine is assembled though, but we also have all of the body panels painted, and those will go on next. Here's the bulkhead right here, and we have the tub. And this is the most efficient way for us to build these projects. So let's take a look at how the guys drop the engine in. And this is a big moment for this project.
I'm gonna get it down. Yeah, get down.
We're going to drop the transmission down into the frame, and we're going to mate it to the engine. So now first, pull it in one spot. Actually, let's do that now. Let's put a small jack underneath the engine. In this case, what we're going to have to do is put a smaller jack underneath the engine pan to raise the rear of the engine up, so that we can properly mate the transmission bell housing to the engine.
That's right there.
Okay, I'm just gonna slide in. And what you saw Billy just do is actually catch that spine and slide in, and now we're doing great.
All right, so that side is a brand new quarter panel. So what we need to do is drill from the inside with a pilot drill first, so that we don't end up having the paint chip off when we drill it with the full-size number 11 drill. So they're drilling the pilot hole from the inside and then going from the outside with the number 11 drill and then riveting it. looks, yeah, that looks good. Perfect, yeah, I like that. So this is a nice package of equipment here that doesn't really take up any space any meaningful space in the load bay. You have some Pioneer tools here, and you have your high lift here, and he'll actually have some speaker boxes as well. So this is nice and tucked in under the seat. You're not really losing much there.
There we go.
It's looking good. This one's coming together nice. This is like a perfect build. Everything went smooth, no surprises. You'd think that eventually, after building so many Series IIAs, it would start to get boring, but it never does. Every one is like, you just want to stand back and just take it all in. Look at this, the fenders are my favorite part. Because that's when the truck actually starts to get its character. It takes on a personality, and they certainly have a lot of personality. Want to look for a lead. Well, that went well. So we just completed our 200 test drive miles. So we always do 200 miles to make sure that everything is just working as it should. Also, to break in the engine, we change out the break-in oil out of the engine and put regular oil in it. And it's really a shakedown just to make sure that everything's working, because there's literally thousands of parts that go up, that make up these Land Rovers. And everything needs to be not only installed properly, but needs to be working properly. So in these test drives, sometimes we find things that need to be adjusted, like the clutch may need to be adjusted a little bit, the parking brake may need to be adjusted, and this is really the time to do that. That way, when the customer receives the vehicle, everything is just good to go. So this vehicle's come a long way from the day that we pulled it out of the woods and loaded it up onto the trailer. If we didn't come along and rescue this vehicle, it would probably still be sitting there slowly rusting away. But these vehicles really deserve to be put back on the road and enjoyed. And the only right way to do that is through a full restoration like this. These vehicles are fairly old, and you can't just expect to do a few repairs on it and put it back on the road. They all need these full restorations at this point. And while we're doing this restoration, it gives us the ability to upgrade to better parts as well, like you've seen in the video, the disc brakes and the modern electronics. So this vehicle is ready to hit the road. It's going to be shipped out to its new owner today. The truck's arriving in about 30 minutes, and we're going to load it up, and it's going to be on its way out to Montana, and it will be ready for another 50 years of enjoyment.